Welcome to another edition of the Committed 100 Ministry Group, where we are 100% committed to teaching the Bible to those who are 100% committed to learn. And of course, we're going to continue in our verse by verse study of the book of Proverbs. And we hope that you take the time to be with us today as we go verse by verse through the wisdom of God in the life of the worshiper of God. And this is actually chapter 17. I think we kind of touched on it lightly last time, but we're definitely going to get into the passage here uh, more specifically today. Uh, Again, just thank you very much for all those who take the time to be with me. And I pray that something is always shared that's going to be a blessing in your life. And thank you again for those who have prayed for my health. My wife, who I love dearly in the Lord, had suggested, you know, you got to appreciate the fact that us husbands, God gives us the wife that we need. Um, I think more than what we want, men have not all men, but men in general, they have a desire for the kind of wife that they want. God may grant that to us, but I guarantee He's going to give us the wife that we need more than what we want. Now, I am blessed to have both. I got the wife that I wanted, and more importantly, I have the wife that I needed. So she suggested, and I knew she was right. She said, you're swollen, your ankle's swollen, you know, before you even think about the surgery and stuff like that, you need to tweak your eating. And Tab chimed in as well, and both are correct. You need to get rid of the inflammatory foods. And if anyone knows about nutrition, it's yours truly. So I have no excuse. I mean, when they're telling me what I already know, and I just cut out what I know is inflammatory to the body and that which holds fluids, which is where the real swelling, the pain comes from the pressure. This almost sounds like a health channel. The pain comes from the pressure that's building up around the joints and the muscles. That's where the pain comes from. And since I have a bone spur in that area, that swelling actually works against that. It presses that, which makes the pain even sharper. And so by tweaking what I eat and really focusing on protein and fat and carbs that are healthy, like vegetables and more vegetables, it was interesting that the fluid around the ankle almost virtually disappeared. And since it did, then the pain that was associated with that also disappeared. So thank you for your prayers, of course, and the Lord using my wife in particular and my daughter as the backup team to remind me that you need to tweak your diet because that's why you're having inflammation and you already knew it's silly, so you don't have any excuse. There you go. Figured I'd give you an update on that. All right. Proverbs 17, verse 1. Better is a dry morsel and quietness therewith than a house full of sacrifices with strife. Very interesting contrast and wisdom. And this verse is very similar to chapter 15, verses 16 and 17. And I want to just say this before I go in that direction. We find oftentimes a proverb is use the same topic throughout the Proverbs, especially the issue of a brawling or contentious woman. I think that's mentioned at least three, maybe four times in the Proverbs. I believe it's three times, but he just puts that in specific places in the book of Proverbs. And he does it even with with this kind of understanding about eating and with quietness, what have you, be thankful for what little you have when you have righteousness. Okay. So better is a dry morsel and quietness therewith than a house full of sacrifice with strife. Very similar to chapter 15, verses 16 and 17, which we already went through. But it says, better is a little with the fear of the Lord than great treasures and trouble therewith. A lot of people, they don't have the fear of the Lord, and the great treasure we obviously discovered is the word of God. They don't have the wisdom of God. They don't have the fear of God. They don't see how great that is. Okay. And there's a contrasted treasure because you got little, the person has little. Okay. The next verse says in verse 17, a den of herbs where love is, then a stalled ox and hatred therewith. You're looking at a contrast of what they have. In verse 16, you have a person that has a fear of the Lord, and he has great treasure in that he has the wisdom of God. Okay, then great treasure. So he has great treasure. Okay, the fear of the Lord is a great treasure. Okay, and it's better to have that than great treasure and turmoil therewith. A lot of people I've known, and I've known a lot of very rich people in my life. I've had that experience as well. Um, and the one thing I could say about pretty much most of the people I've known that were very wealthy, even a few millionaires, is that they were always troubled. They never were people that were, let's just say, calm. I mean, and it goes back to the book of Ecclesiastes. They worried, they spend their lives obtaining wealth, and they worry about wealth. They worry about having it, losing it. Where's it going to go after I die? They got to protect it. So they're worried about wealth. I've never met someone that had abundance of wealth that wasn't worried about it. Am I going to lose it? This, that, the other thing. So he says, better is a dinner with herbs where love is than a stalled ox, a big old giant ox, and hatred therewith. Because you can sit across the dinner table with people and have the best food known to mankind and hate each other's guts. That's not good. It's better to have just a plate full of, herbs. Just very little than it is to have a stalled ox with hatred. Better have love, be together and enjoy your herbs with the blessing of God and his wisdom, than to have a big old giant ox and you hate each other's guts. That's the true treasure. The true treasure is in God. The contrast in chapter 17 is even more prominent. Better is a dry morsel and quietness therewith than in a house full of sacrifices with strife. The dry morsel refers to a crust of bread. It's better to be eating a piece of old crusty bread with quietness. And I could not believe the translation of this word quietness. It means uninterrupted prosperity and security. Now, you have the vision or the image of a man and his family eating pieces of crusty bread. And that is the last image that we would associate with prosperity, but it's exactly that. Dry morsel or a piece of crusty bread with quietness, with uninterrupted prosperity and security, the peace that God brings, than a house full of sacrifice with strife. True prosperity is not always associated with material things, but with one's relationship with God. And most of us have not learned that great truth to this day. We keep associating prosperity with materialism. I think it's safe to say that for the most part, because of our culture, because of our upbringing, because of whatever, that primarily here in America, we are materialists. I don't think that's going out on a ledge. I think that's pretty obvious. And I think anyone that would deny that, I think there's something wrong with them. Or you may be that rare, and did I say rare, exception to the rule. But there are not a lot of those people. We do rely on some level of materialism, good, bad, or indifferent. And some of us, including myself, have been in poverty as a child and also as an adult. So I understand that to a very limited degree. But we get it that sometimes you don't always have an abundance of everything, but what you do have, if you have love and togetherness, you can survive. Again, it's better to have a crusty piece of dried up bread with the Lord's security than to have a house filled to the full with the best of sacrificed meats to the Lord, with strife, contention, or quarreling. I don't like strife, contention, and quarreling because it distracts from everything that God has blessed you with. And I would hope that all of us will avoid strife, contention, and also quarreling, because these are things that we don't need. But it's better to have a crusty piece of bread and the prosperity that comes with a relationship with God, a walk with God, fellowship with Him, uninterrupted inward prosperity, being satisfied and being secure with God, than it is to have everything imaginable. And yet you have nothing but contention and strife and quarreling. Verse 2: a wise servant shall have rule over a son that causeth shame, and shall have part of the inheritance among the brethren. Now, this very truth came to pass after Solomon's death with his own servant Jeroboam. Now, we know that Jeroboam was Solomon's servant, and Rehoboam was Solomon's son, who caused him shame. Jeroboam, Solomon's servant, was given authority over 10 of the 12 tribes of Israel, while Rehoboam was run out of town. Again, a wise servant shall have rule over a son that causeth shame, and shall have part of the inheritance among the brethren. So there's the lesson. And what I love about the Bible, again, that if we are wise and good students of it, everything connects together. I mean, everything. You see these things, boom, that's Jeroboam, Rehoboam. All these truths connect together. We got to get a deep dive in the word and stay there, because there's so much that we don't know. You're talking to someone who's been studying for 50 years, and I'm still learning stuff for the first time. You got to keep diving. You got to keep studying, keep learning, keep being taught. Verse 3: the fining pot is for silver, and the furnace for gold, but the Lord trieth the hearts. Very interesting passage. And a most important verse that we need to stop and examine in some detail. Now, admittedly, this is going to hurt. And it's going to hurt because we're not used to it. We're not used to the process that God uses to bring out the best. The fining pot is a refining pot. It's a pot that is used to melt silver, and the furnace melts gold. And the purpose of that is to allow the dross from silver and gold, which is basically the trash, to float to the top, and then the person who is called the finer, removes the dross so that way the silver and the gold is purified. Now, the only way that's going to happen is that the gold has to be placed and the silver under heat. Very important truth. The finding pot is for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord trieth the hearts. Number one, the process of both heating gold and silver is for the purpose of removing the dross and impurities which hinders its genuine value. The value of the gold and the value of the silver is increased because of its purity. But the question is, what is the method that is used to produce that purity? It's fire. It's fire. The process of extracting dross and impurities happens when the precious metals are purified under intense heat. Let me say it again. The process of extracting dross and impurities begins when the precious metals are purified under intense heat. Now, James and Peter and John, they all use the same imagery to describe the production of genuine faith. I've been saying this for years, and I'm going to keep saying it. And it's something that you should put in the treasure chest of your own mind. And that is, genuine faith is tested faith. You have no idea whether your faith is real, whether it's fake, until it's tested. I said this many years ago and at a church, and people's faces froze because I knew and they knew that their faith has never been tested. Oh, they proclaimed the right things, but I kept referring them back to the parable of the sower. You can say whatever you want, but until that faith is tested, you don't know what you believe. James, Peter, and John use the same imagery to describe the production of genuine faith. James and Peter use it to describe the testing of the believer's faith, while John uses the analogy to describe the need of genuine faith. So James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. My brethren, count it all joy when ye fall into diverse temptations. We're going to break it down a little bit here. Knowing this is what you know of your testings, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. Oh, gotta need patience. I know. He knows too. That's why, well, let's read on. But let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. Look at the verse. Verses, I should say. James reveals some rather remarkable truths as far as the subject of faith is concerned. The first thing we see clearly is that the churches that he writes to are under extreme persecution. Look at verse 1 again. My brethren, count it all joy when ye fall into diverse temptations. Look at verse 2 again. Knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. Now, James instructed the churches in that which could only happen with the right attitude in the hottest testings. And temptation there means trials. Now look at what he instructed them to do. This is very important. This is something we don't do, yet it is necessary when our faith is tested. He said, count it all joy. Count means to put it in your mind before it happens. Okay, he's saying before the test comes, you need to be prepared mentally and in your heart to understand the purpose of these testings and trials. You need to be ready with the right mind and heart to receive them. Oh, this is a lesson we just don't learn. He says, count, put it in your mind before it happens. So, what were the persecuted believers to put in their minds before it happened? He said, count it all joy when ye fall into diverse temptations. James tells these persecuted believers to consider before it happens that when these trials happen, that it is to be a time of rejoicing and gladness and delight whenever they were encompassed on every side with many trials and tests of all kinds. Friends, are you kidding me? We know little to nothing about this. Absolutely little to nothing. I said it for 50 years. I'm going to keep saying it. I believe that most professing believers have no idea whether their faith is real or not because it has never been tested, truly tested with trials and sufferings. We don't know. And the first little teeny weeny, itsy bitty, whatever that we consider a trial that should come our way, counted all the joy. Oh, golly, no. Are you kidding me? Joy? I don't think so. There's complaining, there's whining, there's whatever. There's no joy in that. Absolutely not. But here's the principle, and then we're through for today. He says we need to put it in our minds before the trial comes that we are to count it a privilege, a joyful time, and a time of gladness whenever our faith is being tested. Wow. Principle number 2, trials for Jesus' sake will come. They will come from all sides and they will come in different ways. That's what he's talking about. Count it all joy when ye fall. He's not talking about stumbling, when you should happen upon diverse temptations. The word diverse refers to trials and testings from every side and at all times. There was never a time where they weren't suffering. And they were being tested and tempted on every side with various kinds of trials and tests. He says, count it a joy. Are you kidding me? Today? Oh, golly, no. Please, give yourself a break. You and I both know that's not happening. But I'll say it again in closing. Genuine faith is tested faith, and you have no idea whether your faith is real or not until it's tested. Okay, that's it for this program today. Lord willing, next time, be back in back in Psalm 119. You can write me here, Harley Howard Radio. One word, harleyhowardradio@gmail.com.